The moving truck rolled away under the hazy orange of a late spring sun, leaving Erin Wells standing alone on her pristine driveway. Baby Lucy, only 7 months old, slept soundly against her chest in a cloth sling. The neighborhood of Cedar Hills appeared as serene as the brochures had promised. White picket fences, identical shrubs, and streets named after flowering trees. But the silence felt too neat. Something in it rang false. Erin had chosen Cedar Hills as a new beginning. After a messy separation and months of couch hopping with Lucy, the modest 2-bedroom bungalow had felt like a sanctuary. Everything was tidy, manageable, and safe. She unpacked the final box in Lucy's nursery just as the sun dipped behind the neatly trimmed houses, washing the room in a soft golden light. That night, Lucy cried. Not excessively, just the usual fussing at 2 a.m. as Erin gently warmed a bottle. The walls were thin, and the baby monitor crackled softly. Erin rocked Lucy in the chair by the window, whispering lullabies into the night. At 7:45 a.m., a loud knock startled her from sleep on the living room couch. She opened the door to find a woman in a tailored pastel pantsuit, short-cropped silver hair styled with militant precision. A clipboard hung from her elbow, like a weapon. "Good morning. Karen Delaney, president of the Cedar Hills Homeowners Association." Erin blinked. "Hi, I'm Erin. We just moved in yesterday." Karen smiled, but her eyes did not. "Yes, I'm aware. I'm here regarding a noise complaint logged by 2 neighboring properties. Infant crying between the hours of 1:45 and 3:15 a.m. You'll find this community values tranquility, Ms. Wells." "I'm sorry, but she's a baby," Erin said, instinctively adjusting Lucy on her hip. "We just moved in." "She's still adjusting." "Of course," Karen said tightly, flipping her clipboard to reveal a neatly printed violation form. "Consider this a first warning. There is a $75 fine associated. Payable within 10 business days." Erin stared, dumbfounded. "You're fining me because my baby cried?" Karen tilted her head. "We all make sacrifices to live in a peaceful neighborhood. Some of us install soundproofing. Others choose to wait until their children are older before moving into shared communities." And with that, she turned crisply and left. Erin stood frozen in the doorway, anger brewing beneath her disbelief. The paper trembled in her hand as Lucy cooed, unaware. "Welcome to Cedar Hills," Erin thought bitterly. Over the next few days, Erin learned that the calm of the neighborhood was rigidly enforced by Karen's all-seeing eye. Small rules lurked everywhere. Trash bins not to be placed outside before 6 a.m. on pickup days. Cars must not be parked on the street overnight. Lawn grass height must remain between 2 and 4 inches. She began to notice security cameras perched on corners and eaves, many pointing into public spaces, and some, more concerningly, into private ones. When the second citation arrived, a letter accusing her of ongoing auditory disruption, Erin's patience frayed. The note was anonymous but unmistakably Karen's voice. "Community cohesion depends on compliance. Please take responsibility." That afternoon, Erin walked next door to confront her. Karen answered before the first knock was finished, as if she'd been watching. "Ms. Wells," she said flatly. Erin kept her voice measured. "I received another citation. There was no excessive crying, no noise above what's normal. This is harassment." Karen arched an eyebrow. "You're welcome to appeal it at the monthly HOA meeting. But be aware, multiple violations can result in formal proceedings, even termination of property rights, if necessary." Erin stared at her, stunned. "You're threatening to evict me because I have a baby?" Karen didn't answer. Instead, she smiled, a tight, polite expression laced with menace, and closed the door. Word traveled fast in Cedar Hills. At the mailbox cluster later that week, a woman with tired eyes and garden gloves whispered as Erin checked her mail. "You're the one with the baby, right?" she said, casting a glance toward Karen's house across the street. "Don't let her get to you. She did the same thing to a couple last year with twins. Had them written up weekly until they moved out." Erin opened her mouth to ask more, but the woman had already hurried off, leaving her with a sense of invisible walls closing in. She tried to comply, closing windows at night, muffling Lucy's cries with white noise machines, tiptoeing like a fugitive in her own home. But babies don't follow HOA guidelines, and the third violation came a week later: possible negligence. Child audible during designated quiet hours. A printed list of potential consequences accompanied it, including formal complaints to Child Protective Services. Something in Erin snapped. She began documenting everything: timestamps of cries, decibel readings using her phone, even setting up her own small camera facing outward. She emailed the HOA asking for clarification on the exact bylaws concerning child noise, and received a cold response referring vaguely to nuisance categories in Section 8. One night, as she tucked Lucy in, she noticed a strange glow through the curtain. She pulled it back and saw a small red light, blinking faintly, perched atop Karen's gutter, pointed directly into Lucy's window. Erin's breath caught. She reached for her phone, recorded the footage, and reported it to local police. But when they arrived, they shrugged. "She says it's just a home security camera," the officer explained. "It's her property. Unless it's inside your house, there's not much we can do." "She's targeting my baby," Erin said, her voice rising. "She's recording us." The officer looked uncomfortable. "Maybe try to work it out with the HOA? I'm sure it's just a misunderstanding." It wasn't. The next morning, a new notice was taped to her door. This one read, "Final warning. Continued disregard for community standards will result in mandatory hearing before the HOA board. Failure to appear will result in enforcement actions." Enclosed was a copy of a noise map, somehow tracking activity from her home over the past 2 weeks. It looked scientific, official, intimidating. A neighbor might believe it, Erin realized. It was propaganda. That evening, as Lucy slept, Erin sat alone on the porch. The sun had dipped again behind those perfect rooftops, and all the house lights had clicked on in robotic synchronization. She felt eyes on her from behind curtained windows. She wasn't imagining it anymore, this was a campaign. But she wasn't the same woman she'd been a year ago, cowering in a broken apartment with a newborn and no exit. She was done being afraid. She picked up her phone, opened the community Facebook group, and typed, "Has anyone else in Cedar Hills been cited or threatened by the HOA for unreasonable reasons? Please DM me. I have a story you'll want to hear." She hit post. Then slowly a few likes, a comment. "We left because of her." Another, "Still here. Watching. You're not alone." And finally, a message from an anonymous account. "I have footage. You'll want to see it. It's time someone stopped her." The message came from a burner account with no profile picture, no name, just a single text. "I have footage. You'll want to see it. It's time someone stopped her." Erin sat rigid at her kitchen table, the glow from her laptop casting long shadows across the stack of violation notices. Baby Lucy slept a few feet away in her bassinet, her breathing soft, rhythmic. Erin's finger hovered over the message. She clicked it. A video began to load, shaky, recorded from a second-story window. It showed Karen Delaney pacing Erin's front lawn at nearly midnight, wearing a silk robe and bedroom slippers, her arms flailing as she muttered angrily into a phone. She stopped, turned toward Lucy's window, and shouted, "You need to shut that baby up, do you hear me?" Her voice was hoarse, furious. "You want to see how fast I can get child services out here? Keep pushing me." Erin's stomach clenched. The file ended, followed by a second message. "We've all been watching. You're not the first. But maybe you'll be the last." The next day, Erin met the sender. His name was Omar Reyes, a soft-spoken man in his 40s who lived 4 doors down with his elderly mother. He kept a low profile and a precise lawn, enough to avoid Karen's gaze, but not so perfect that it drew attention. "She tried to fine me for leaving a wheelchair ramp up after dark," he said as they sat on his back patio. "Said it was aesthetic disruption. My mom doesn't sleep through the night anymore because of her." Erin sipped the coffee he'd offered. Why hasn't anyone stood up to her? People did. Quietly. She found ways to ruin them. Revoke their landscaping permits. Threaten to tow their cars. Turn the board against them. Eventually people leave. He showed her a folder full of emails, citations, recordings. One caught her eye, a still of a garden, torn out in neat rows. "Linda, 3 houses down," Omar explained. Her sunflower bed was unauthorized horticulture. She cried for a week. Aaron sat back, processing. "We can't all be wrong." "You're not. But you might be the first one with enough fire left to fight her." That afternoon, Aaron crafted a letter to the HOA board, requesting an emergency hearing to dispute the violation citations. She CC'd every resident on the HOA email list, Karen included. That night, the knocks returned. 3 sharp raps on the door. Then silence. Aaron opened it slowly. Karen stood there, arms folded, a flat smile pressed into her face like plastic. "You've been busy," she said. "Organizing. Making noise." Aaron said nothing. Karen stepped closer. "Let me be clear, Ms. Wells. This neighborhood is not yours to change. If you stir the pot, you may find yourself without a home very quickly. Single mothers don't get many second chances." Aaron's hand clenched the edge of the door. "Are you threatening me?" Karen's eyes flicked downward, toward Lucy's faint whimper from inside the house. "I'm reminding you of the rules." And then she was gone. The next day, things escalated. Aaron woke to find her mailbox door ripped off. Trash scattered across her lawn. A complaint email sent out to the entire HOA list. "Resident at 4412 Dogwood has displayed concerning behavioral changes." Multiple neighbors report nighttime disturbances, erratic shouting, and poor property maintenance. A safety review is scheduled. It was character assassination, designed to paint her as unstable. Aaron responded with a calm, measured rebuttal, attaching Omar's footage and requesting a formal response. Then came the anonymous notes. One tucked under her windshield wiper. "Leave now, while you can still decide how." Another scrawled on her door in marker. "Bad mothers don't belong here." She filed a police report. Again, no action was taken. But the Facebook messages kept rolling in, quiet voices, once silenced, finding strength in numbers. One from Linda. "If you're standing up, I will too. She pulled up my garden while I was at work." Another from Dave and Marla. "She fined us $200 for painting our door a shade too red. We didn't fight back. Wish we had." Aaron created a shared Google Drive and invited them all in. She called it the file. They uploaded photos, violation letters, timelines, screenshots, years of quiet suffering documented in digital stone. The turning point came 1 week later at the monthly HOA meeting held at the local rec center. Karen stood at the front, clipboard in hand, her voice sharp and professional as she opened the agenda. A handful of residents sat in folding chairs, bored or weary. Aaron raised her hand. "Before we begin, I have a motion to present." Karen's eyes narrowed. "This meeting is not open to." Aaron stood. "I request the board review its conduct over the past 2 years. Specifically, the issuance of retaliatory violations, manipulation of bylaws, and targeted harassment of select residents." Gasps. A few murmurs. She stepped forward and placed a printed binder on the table. "This contains documents, footage, and statements from 17 households. That's nearly 1/3 of the community." Karen glanced at the board, 3 members, all looking uneasy. "These are fabricated. This is a coordinated smear campaign." Aaron looked directly at them. "I'm requesting an independent review. You've seen the emails. You've heard her threats. This isn't about one crying baby. This is about control." One board member, a younger woman named Monica Liu, flipped through the binder and stiffened. "You've been recording residents?" "No," Aaron said. "But some residents recorded what they were forced to live with." Karen's voice rose. "This is slander. We are within our rights. These rules are order. Without them, this neighborhood falls apart." Omar stood from the back row. "Rules don't mean much when they only serve one person." For the first time, Karen looked rattled. She snatched the binder and stormed out of the room. The next morning, Aaron awoke to silence. No new citations. No Karen. She walked Lucy to the park and noticed heads turning, nods exchanged. Quiet, almost imperceptible shifts in the air. That night, another message arrived in her inbox. From a private, untraceable email. You think this is over. But I don't go quietly. Erin exhaled slowly. She rocked Lucy in the nursery, window curtains drawn tight. The room was calm. Still. But war had been declared. The next move was coming. And this time, she wasn't playing defense. It started with the cameras. 2 days after the HOA meeting, residents began noticing them. Small, black devices mounted to eaves, peeking from hedges, hidden in hollowed birdhouses. Karen Delaney had doubled down. If her authority had been questioned, she would tighten her grip until the neighborhood choked on silence. But something had shifted. A silent resistance was forming. On Maple Court, Omar discreetly removed the motion sensor from his garage. On Birch Lane, Linda planted sunflowers again, this time on both sides of her mailbox, in defiance. And Erin? Erin documented it all. Every new camera, every veiled threat, every time Karen stood at the edge of her lawn like a watchful statue with a clipboard and venom behind her eyes. The Facebook group had exploded into quiet revolution. Residents were still cautious, but no longer afraid. They had a leader now, someone who'd stood up and refused to sit back down. One night, Erin received another message. Not a warning, not a threat, a file. Video_archive_CHHOA_zip. She hesitated only a moment before downloading. Inside were dozens of clips, security footage, voice recordings, private surveillance. All of it centered on Karen. And all of it damning. Karen screaming at a teenager for skateboarding. Karen accusing an elderly man of property neglect for keeping wind chimes. Karen in her backyard, phone in hand, muttering, "One more noise from that baby, and I swear I'll do something she won't come back from." And then a recording. Karen's voice, angry, trembling. She doesn't belong here. People like her, single, broke, desperate, they drag property values into the gutter. You know what sells houses? Quiet, clean, childless. It was more than a power grab now. It was discrimination. And Erin knew what she had to do. At the next HOA board meeting, Erin didn't just bring documentation. She brought backup. 15 residents arrived with her, including Monica Liu, the youngest board member, and Omar, who had become her right hand. Linda brought the sunflower Karen once tore from her garden and placed it on the center table like a peace offering or a threat. Karen arrived 10 minutes late, visibly thrown by the crowd. She paused at the entrance, eyes flicking across faces. "What is this?" she snapped. Erin stood. "This is a community. You've treated it like a fiefdom for too long." Karen's laugh was brittle. "You're not in charge here." "No," Monica said from the dais, "but you're about to find out what happens when the board decides to act like one." Karen's expression twisted. "This is mutiny." "No," said Omar. "This is democracy." Erin connected her laptop to the projector. The first video played, Karen confronting a 6-year-old for drawing chalk art on the sidewalk. The next, her tearing up Omar's accessibility ramp. The last, her rant about Erin's kind, dragging property values down. The room went still. Karen turned white. "This is illegal surveillance," she croaked. "This is doctored." "No," Monica cut in. "This is evidence. And under Article 12.3 of our own HOA charter, your actions constitute harassment and abuse of power. Effective immediately, I move to suspend your authority pending a formal vote." Karen lunged forward, slamming her hand on the table. "You can't do this. I built Cedar Hills." "No," Erin said, standing firm. "You poisoned it." Karen's hands shook. "You think this is over? You have no idea who I know, what I can do." "Then prove it," Monica said. "Because you're officially under investigation." What followed was chaos. Karen's supporters, few and aging, tried to rally, but most residents stayed silent or began to back away. The board filed for a temporary injunction, limiting Karen's authority until a community-wide vote could be held. In the meantime, Erin's name was cleared, her citations dismissed, and Lucy's nursery was finally quiet for one night. Then came the incident. It was 3:07 a.m. when Erin's porch light exploded. She jolted upright to Lucy's startled cry, heart hammering as glass crunched outside. She peeked through the curtain. A figure stood at the edge of the lawn, motionless, barely lit by the street lamp.
Karen. She wasn't holding a clipboard this time.
She was holding a bat. Erin grabbed her phone and called the police. Before they arrived, Karen began pacing, muttering. Her voice was cracked, frantic. She ruined it. She ruined everything. You think this place is yours? You don't belong. I should have done it earlier. She approached the window. Erin backed away, trembling. Lucy wailed in the background. Karen raised the bat, her eyes wide and glassy. That's when the squad cars pulled up. Red and blue lights flashed like judgment. Officers leapt from their vehicles. "Ma'am, drop the weapon." Karen froze, then shrieked, a guttural, broken sound, and dropped the bat with a metallic clang. Erin stood on her porch as they cuffed her. Karen turned, eyes wild. "She's lying. That baby is a menace. She's trying to destroy me." The officer looked at Erin, then at Lucy, still crying. "Get her in the car." As the cruiser pulled away, Karen screamed through the open window. "This isn't over. They'll see. They'll all see." But no one was watching her anymore. The next morning, Cedar Hills felt lighter. The cameras were gone by noon. The mailbox Erin once feared had a handwritten note tucked inside. "Thank you for standing up. 4,410 Birch." By the end of the week, the HOA board voted unanimously to remove Karen Delaney from her position. Charges were filed for harassment, destruction of property, and criminal threats. Her house was listed for sale before the month was over. Erin walked Lucy past it one last time. The lawn was overgrown, the curtains drawn. No cameras, no watchers, just silence. And for the first time since moving in, it felt like peace. 6 months had passed since the night Karen Delaney was taken away in handcuffs. Summer had given way to the golden hush of autumn in Cedar Hills. The trees, once trimmed with neurotic precision under Karen's rule, now swayed freely in the wind, their leaves collecting in messy, unbothered piles. Nobody cared. Nobody whined. The silence had changed. It was no longer the oppressive, tight-lipped quiet of fear, but something warmer, gentler, earned. Erin Wells stood at her front window with a coffee in one hand and Lucy, now 9 months old, balanced on her hip. The baby watched the neighborhood with curious eyes, as if seeing it for the first time. Maybe she was. The porch light had been replaced. The mailbox fixed. The cameras?
Gone.
Across the street, Linda crouched in her garden, now vibrant with marigolds and lavender. On the corner, Omar was painting the trim on his front door a soft navy blue, technically 2 shades off from the original HOA guidelines, but no one came to correct him. No one ever would again. Erin smiled. The war was over, but the rebuilding had only just begun. The HOA elections had taken place quietly but decisively. Monica Liu was now the chair, her platform focused on transparency, community input, and restorative policy. She'd proposed amending several bylaws, removing Karen's punitive clauses and replacing them with clear, resident-first language. Erin had been approached, twice, about joining the board herself. She'd declined. Her battles had been waged. Her voice had already done its work. And now, she was content to speak through the small, steady actions that stitched a community back together. One of those actions was the file. No longer a secret drive hidden among whispers, it had been renamed the archive.
Public. Honest.
Preserved. It wasn't about revenge. It was a reminder of what had happened and what had been allowed to happen when fear went unchecked and silence was weaponized. Communities, Erin once wrote in its new introduction, aren't built on rules. They're built on people. And people need to be heard. The archive now lived on the HOA's new website, right under a tab titled Accountability. Karen Delaney did not return to Cedar Hills. After her arrest, she was released on bail, pending trial. The charges had stuck, harassment, trespassing, destruction of property, and making criminal threats. Footage from the file and multiple testimonies formed the backbone of the prosecution. Whispers said she'd tried to settle quietly, offering money for silence. It didn't work. The house she once ruled from was eventually sold to a young couple with a baby on the way. Erin brought over banana bread as a welcome gift, a gesture once unthinkable under the old regime. They thanked her, a bit confused by how many neighbors waved on their moving day. They'd learned soon enough what the neighborhood had been and what it had become. It wasn't perfect. There were still disagreements, odd complaints, and reminders that human nature didn't vanish with a name on a deed. But now, the board listened. The people spoke. And most importantly, the fear was gone. Lucy had begun sleeping through the night. Erin too. Sometimes, she'd catch herself pacing the hallway at 2 a.m., listening for phantom knocks or watching for shadows by the window. Old habits born from months of stress didn't die easily, but they softened. One night, she stood barefoot on her front porch, wrapped in a sweater, watching the moon cast a pale light over the now peaceful street. Omar joined her, holding 2 mugs. "Chamomile," he said, handing her one. "I figured you could use a nightcap." She smiled. "You always know." He gestured toward the quiet homes. "Still feels strange, doesn't it? The peace." "I think it feels earned," Erin replied. "Like it cost something real. And it should." He nodded, then sipped. "You ever think about how close it came to staying the same? If you hadn't stood up." She looked down at Lucy's soft breathing against her chest. "I didn't stand up for a cause," she said. "I just wanted to be able to raise my daughter without being hunted." "But that's exactly what makes it powerful," Omar said. "You weren't trying to be a hero. You just refused to be silent." They sat in the calm, breathing in the new rhythm of Cedar Hills. On the 1-year anniversary of Karen's removal, the neighborhood held its first-ever community day, an open-lawn event with food trucks, live music, kids playing in bounce houses. It was Monica's idea, but the neighborhood made it theirs. Erin ran a memory wall booth. Residents could anonymously post notes, stories, or photos. Some were lighthearted, others somber. One read, "I was fined $100 because my dog barked at the wrong hour. I didn't fight it. I wish I had." Another simply said, "We're still here. That matters." Near the end of the day, Erin found one note that made her stop. It said, "To the woman who answered the knock instead of hiding, thank you. You gave us all permission to open our doors." She didn't cry, but her breath caught. Later that evening, Erin took Lucy, now wobbling proudly on her own 2 feet, on a walk down the main sidewalk. Neighbors waved. A teenager on a skateboard passed them, music playing from his phone. No one chased him off. When they reached the Delaney house, Lucy stopped, gripping the fence post, fascinated by the wind chimes newly hung from the porch. They sang in the breeze. Unapologetically. Erin looked up at the house. New paint. New family. New chapter. She turned to her daughter and smiled. "Let's go home."